I wish my husband was more like. You've had that thought before, haven't you? Maybe it came from a small moment, maybe even a misunderstanding. And you're just going about your day, maybe washing dishes, and that thought quietly comes in, wishing your husband was a little more like someone else. Someone you admire, someone you see online, maybe even your pastor. And it feels harmless, like it's just a thought. But it lingers, and before you even realize it, that's how comparison quietly enters the marriage. Here's the thing, it doesn't always stay small. In a world where everything is online, it's so easy to look at someone else's relationship and feel like yours is lacking. You see the perfect couple, the sweet posts, the captions, or even the comments that say, power couple. And without even realizing it, you start measuring your husband against a version of someone else that isn't even real. And most of the time, we don't even notice that it's happening. But here's what no one really talks about. Behind closed doors, there is always more than meets the eye. Conversations still being learned, areas still being worked on, things no one else ever hears about. And even the people you admire are still growing too. So let me ask you honestly, are you really sure you want your husband to be like them? And this is exactly what the scripture warns us about. In Exodus 20, verse 17, it says, "You shall not covet." And you might be thinking, but I'm not coveting. Hear me. Comparison, if it's not checked early, leads the heart right there. Because comparison makes you look, and coveting makes you want. And this is where it starts to affect more than you realize. Comparison doesn't just stay a thought, it steals your joy, it kills your peace, and if it's left unchecked, it slowly affects your home. It blinds you to the good that's already in front of you because your focus shifts to what was never yours to begin with. Let me slow this down for a second and ask you something honestly. Why did you marry your husband? What made you say yes? What are the good things about him? Right now, answer that from your heart because they are there, but comparison has a way of making us forget. And the scripture calls us to something different. In Philippians 4 verse 8, we are told to think about what is true, honorable, pure, of good reports, praiseworthy. But comparison literally does the opposite. It trains your mind to focus on what's missing instead of what's already right in front of you. I want you to sit with this for a second. When God brought you and your husband together, He already knew both of your strengths and your weaknesses. You were never meant to be identical. You were meant to complement each other. Because if you were exactly the same, you would struggle in the same areas. But instead, you get to help each other grow. Marriage isn't just about happiness. It's a place where God shapes us. It's a process. And sometimes it's not comfortable. But even in that, God is producing something beautiful. Here is where things start to change. Because what you feed your mind matters. When you're constantly exposed to comparison, scrolling, watching and seeing it everywhere, it doesn't just stay on the surface. It slowly starts shaping how you see everything. But when you begin to feed your spirit instead, your perspective begins to shift. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like spending time in the Word, being mindful of what you watch, and sometimes even taking a break from social media, because what you feed will grow. And when you begin to focus on God, you start to see your husband differently, not through his flaws, but through the lens of grace. You begin to appreciate who he is and who he is becoming, instead of focusing on where he's lacking. Because at the end of the day, your marriage isn't meant to look like anyone else's. It's meant to reflect the relationship between Christ and His church. And as wives, God has called us to love, to honor, and to submit to our husbands as unto the Lord. So instead of focusing outward, you begin to focus on how God is calling you to show up as a wife. Am I loving well? Am I honoring well? Am I responding the way God is calling me to? When you focus on being aligned with God, your perspective begins to shift. Instead of striving to look elsewhere, you begin to grow in your walk with Him. And that growth flows into your marriage. There's a quiet peace that comes with knowing God is still working right where you are. Because Isaiah 26 verse 3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on you." And when your mind is stayed on Him, the peace of God doesn't just stay within you. It begins to shape everything around you. It steadies you and becomes evident in your life and in your home. Because when your eyes are fixed on Christ, when your eyes are fixed on Jesus Christ, you can trust what He is building in your life and in your home. Hi, I'm Jessica. I share encouragement for wives and moms walking with God through real everyday life. And I just want to remind you, you are seen by God. You are deeply loved, and you are graced for this season. You don't have to walk through it alone. If this video blessed you, like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Have you ever struggled with comparison in your marriage? What helped you overcome it? Your story might help someone else more than you know. And if this is something you're currently struggling with, you can also leave that in the comments if you're not shy, and we'll all intercede for you. I'm praying for you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.